While I was at work, my husband packed our children and left the country with his sister's help. He left a note that said, "You chose your career. We're choosing peace." I collapsed. For months, no one helped me. Then I found his sister's social media and a mistake in the background of one photo. I tracked them. At their airport arrival months later, I was waiting with two officers. My husband dropped the bags when he saw who was behind me. I used to think betrayal came with warning signs. A cold tone, missed calls, arguments that don't resolve. But real betrayal? The kind that scars you? It's quiet. It waits. And then it hits like a freight train when you're too tired to even flinch. I met Derek at a hospital charity fundraiser in Sacramento. He was charming, funny, said all the right things. I was in my third year as an RN, pulling 60-hour weeks and climbing fast. Most men I dated couldn't handle my schedule. Derek said he admired it. Said he loved that I had purpose. That lasted exactly until the kids were born. We didn't plan to have them back to back, but it happened. I cut back at work for a while. Derek picked up freelance gigs from home. But as my hours increased again, he pulled back. Said daycare wasn't what he wanted for them. Said it made more sense for him to be home. I agreed. At the time, it felt fair. But what I didn't realize then was that every diaper change, every bath, every scraped knee, he was adding it all up like a debt I owed him. I missed milestones. Jason's first lost tooth. Ava's first recital. I didn't miss them because I didn't care. I missed them because someone had to keep the lights on. My paychecks kept us housed, insured, fed. But somehow, my being gone became the only thing that mattered to him. He started making these snide comments. Like, "They cried less when you weren't home." Or, "Don't bother, they're already asleep." I brushed it off at first. I thought it was stress. Parenting is hard. I told myself we were just in a rough patch. One night, I came home late from an emergency double shift. My feet were bleeding through my sneakers. He didn't even look up from the couch. Just said, "They don't even ask for you anymore." I still remember standing in the hallway, holding my shoes in one hand and takeout in the other, thinking, is this what it looks like when love dies? But I stayed. Because I thought we were still a family. Because I loved my kids more than anything. Because I didn't think he'd ever. It was a Monday. That's the part that always sticks with me. A damn Monday. I'd worked a full night shift. Came home just before 8 a.m. The house was too quiet. Normally I'd hear cartoons or Ava giggling. Instead, there was just silence. I walked room to room, calling names. Nothing. That pit in my stomach started to grow fast. Then I saw it. The closets. Cleared out. Their clothes, their toys gone. I ran into the kitchen and saw the note. It wasn't even on nice paper. Just a ripped piece of legal pad, taped to the counter. His handwriting. Blocky. Sharp. "You chose your career. We're choosing peace. Don't come looking for us." I read it 5 times. Then I collapsed on the kitchen floor. I stayed there for hours. I don't even remember how I got to my phone. I called 911. Then my mom. Then his parents. No one gave me anything useful. No one sounded surprised. The police were polite but useless. They told me it was a civil issue. That unless I had proof he was a danger to the kids, they couldn't classify it as kidnapping. They asked if we had a custody agreement. We didn't. Why would we? We were married. We lived in the same house. I didn't see it coming. I filed a report anyway. Then I called every airport within 100 miles. Nothing. I tried to get phone records, bank statements. But he was smart. He used cash. He wiped his phone. I couldn't even track where he might have gone. For weeks, I stayed off social media. I stopped going into work. I sat in my kids' empty rooms and just stared. I thought maybe they'd come back. Maybe it was just some twisted punishment for working too much. But months passed. Silence. No messages.
No updates. No verdades.
Nothing. I hired a lawyer, scraped together money from savings and credit cards. She said cases like mine rarely end well without a location. And even then, courts in foreign countries don't always honor U.S. custody rights. It was like punching a wall. Then one night, I couldn't sleep. I was scrolling through Facebook, trying to distract myself, when I saw a photo on a public profile. A guy had tagged Monique, Derek's sister, in a group shot. She was smiling, laughing, holding what looked like a smoothie. In the background was a kid in a yellow sweater with little blue stars across the chest. It was Ava. I knew that sweater. I made it with my own hands during a slow winter stretch. I must have looked at that photo for an hour. Behind them was a shop sign with Lancanite on it. I didn't speak Portuguese, but I knew enough to Google it. That one word led me to an entire shopping plaza in Sao Paulo, Brazil. I cross-checked it with other photos on Monique's page. There it was again. The same tile floor. The same ceiling design. That was it. That was my proof. After that, I changed. I got cold. Focused. I hired a lawyer who worked international custody disputes. We started a file. Collected everything. Photos. Dates. Emails. Texts. Bank withdrawals. We filed in family court for full custody. We petitioned federal agencies. We notified Interpol. I kept working shifts to pay for it all. Some days I didn't eat just to save enough for legal fees. It took almost a year. Then one day I got the call. Their passports were flagged. Return tickets from Sao Paulo to San Francisco via Dallas. They were coming back. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't even feel excited. I felt ready. I printed everything. Court orders. Travel documents. Birth certificates. I met 2 federal officers at the airport, hands shaking but steady. I told them what flight, what time. I waited just outside the gate. I saw them before they saw me. Derek was holding Jason's hand. Monique had Ava on her hip. They looked like a normal family. They looked happy. That hurt more than I expected. Then Derek looked up, saw me, then saw the officers. He froze, then dropped the bags. I'll never forget the look on his face. But that wasn't the end, because what he did wasn't just cruel. It was calculated. And now that I had my kids back, I was going to make sure he never had the power to hurt anyone like that again. Not me. Not Ava. Not Jason. This wasn't just about custody anymore. This was war. Getting the kids back wasn't the relief I thought it would be. Don't get me wrong, I held them so tight that night, I thought my arms might break. Jason clung to me. Ava was confused. She asked if she was in trouble. That wrecked me. But it wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The officers escorted us to a holding room. Monique tried to act like this was some big misunderstanding. She was never around, she kept saying. We did what was best for the children. Derek didn't say much. He just kept glancing at the kids, then at me, like he was calculating something. The custody papers were clear. Temporary full custody to me pending a formal court hearing. They couldn't leave the state. He had to surrender their passports. The court froze his accounts that week, and Monique got served 2 days later. But the real battle started at home. The kids didn't know what to believe. Derek and Monique had told them I left to go save strangers and didn't want to come back. Jason kept asking, "Why did you stop calling us?" My own son thought I abandoned him. I never stopped calling. I just didn't know where they were. Therapy helped slowly. But every night, when I tucked them in, I saw the damage in their eyes. Jason had night terrors. Ava wouldn't sleep alone. They clung to each other like survivors. Meanwhile, Derek filed for joint custody from his temporary housing in Fremont. He had a new attorney. Expensive one. I couldn't afford to match it. His motion said I was emotionally unstable, that I was obsessively controlling, and that the kids had adjusted better under his care abroad. It was like he rewrote history. The man who stole my kids was painting me as dangerous. The court ordered an evaluation. We each had to meet with a child psychologist. Home visits. Interviews. I opened every drawer, every cabinet, gave full access to everything. Derek put on a performance. He showed up to the first session in a cardigan, talked about co-parenting, smiled like he hadn't spent the last year destroying my life. What made it worse? He started showing up at Ava's daycare. The first time, I found out because she came home crying. Said, "Daddy told me you don't love him anymore." I called the police, but they said he wasn't violating anything yet. I filed for restraining order. It took weeks. Meanwhile, Monique started her own campaign online. She posted vague quotes about family court corruption and mothers weaponizing courts. People I hadn't heard from in years were messaging me like, "What really happened?" Some of Derek's family unfollowed me. Some even commented things like, "Kids need both parents." I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. I kept showing up to work, but I felt hollow. People at the hospital noticed. One day, my supervisor pulled me aside and said, "You need to take care of yourself. You're not the only one who sees the cracks." The only thing that kept me going was Jason and Ava. Every smile I got from them, every bedtime story, every whispered, "I missed you, Mommy." That was my fuel. Then, about 3 months in, I got a call from the court-appointed evaluator. She said something was off with Derek's statements. Some timelines didn't match. She asked if he'd ever had contact with someone in Brazil's social services. I said no. A week later, I found the crack. A woman emailed me from Sao Paulo. She said she worked in a support office that helps expat parents. Said she saw my name in a registry. Derek had filed a fake custody agreement there. Forged signatures. Used a falsified address to make it look like I had abandoned the kids. And worst of all, he'd listed Monique as their legal guardian in case the mother refused re-entry. They'd planned to make it permanent. I forwarded everything to my lawyer. That's when things started to turn. But the damage wasn't just legal. My son still sometimes flinches when I raise my voice. Ava draws pictures of houses with broken hearts on the doors. They both sleep with lights on. So no. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about showing the court and everyone who helped him what he really is. Because the worst part of betrayal isn't just that they leave. It's that they rewrite the story like you were never there to begin with. And now I was going to tell the truth, loud enough for the whole damn court to hear. Just when I thought I had the upper hand, proof of forgery, the kids slowly opening up, court finally listening. Derek did something that blindsided me again. He filed a motion to disqualify my lawyer. Claimed she had a conflict of interest because, get this, she once worked for a firm that handled a contract for the hospital I work at. That motion bought him 3 more weeks. 3 more weeks of dragging things out. 3 more weeks of him posting smiling selfies with Jason and Ava on social media, like he hadn't ripped them out of my life. It was all a show. A strategic stall. Then it got worse. The family court mediator, during a second round of interviews, reported that Ava had said something disturbing. She said, "Daddy said we weren't supposed to tell the lady about Brazil." When they asked Jason about it, he got nervous. Said he'd get in trouble like before. They were being coached. That was a big deal. It triggered a court-mandated forensic evaluation, a deeper one. But here's the twist I didn't see coming. During that evaluation, they also interviewed Monique. Apparently, she cracked. Maybe it was guilt, or fear of being held legally liable. But she admitted on record that she helped Derek plan the whole thing. She even gave details I didn't know, that he'd been researching international custody loopholes for over a year. That he knew how long he had to be abroad before filing false jurisdiction paperwork. That he made her lie to U.S. Customs by pretending she was taking the kids on a family vacation. That confession hit like a wrecking ball. My lawyer immediately moved to have Derek's temporary visitation suspended. The judge agreed, pending a full review of the new evidence. Derek, once smug and composed in court, started unraveling. He showed up to the next hearing late, unshaven, agitated. Claimed we were alienating the kids. That we'd brainwashed Monique. He even said I was using my nurse salary and courtroom bias to turn the legal system against a father just trying to protect his children. But it didn't work. The judge ordered a full review of all his financials, including how he funded an entire year abroad with no reported income. That's when the next twist landed. He'd been using an offshore account in the Cayman Islands. Money moved there slowly over years. The court froze it immediately. I finally saw it on his face, fear. But even with all that, the court was slow. Careful. They don't rush these things. Meanwhile, I was still living in limbo. Still trying to help my kids feel safe. Still going into work pretending like my whole life wasn't sitting on a knife's edge. One night, I heard Jason crying in the hallway. I got up, knelt beside him. He whispered, "Is Daddy going to take us again?" I wrapped him in my arms and said, "Not this time. I promise." But deep down, I knew I needed more than court orders. I needed to end this in a way that would leave no doubt about who Derek really was and about who had always fought for those kids. So I started planning something of my own. Not just legal.
Public. Permanent.
Because I wasn't just going to win in court. I was going to destroy every mask he ever wore. The final hearing came 6 weeks later. I hadn't slept the night before. Neither had the kids. Jason had nightmares again. Ava clung to my side during breakfast, like she was trying to memorize the feel of my arm. Derek showed up in a press suit with a new lawyer, his third. Monique wasn't there. She'd stopped speaking to him. Her statement had been submitted to the court, along with the signed transcripts. She'd taken a plea deal for obstruction but was spared jail in exchange for full cooperation. I sat in that courtroom and watched Derek try to spin everything. He called me unavailable, said I weaponized my career, claimed I was obsessed with control. It was the same script he'd been rehearsing since he left. But this time it didn't work. The judge read aloud parts of the forensic report. How Derek had knowingly and systematically manipulated facts, how he created a false legal narrative in a foreign country, and how he had directed minor children to withhold information from investigators. Then they read Monique's statement. She admitted he'd promised her part of the offshore money in exchange for helping him raise the kids outside my reach. The court had already verified the existence of the account, which he'd lied about under oath. By the end, Derek was sweating. His lawyer had stopped writing notes. The ruling came down like thunder. Full legal and physical custody awarded to me. Derek's parental rights suspended, pending a future criminal investigation for international child abduction and fraud. Passport revocation ordered. No unsupervised contact allowed. Court costs and legal fees his. When the gavel fell, I didn't cry. I just looked at him, and I smiled, just once. Small. Controlled. He looked at me like he finally understood. This wasn't just about losing custody. This was about everyone knowing what he did. About him never being able to pretend again. But I wasn't finished. The next day, I gave an exclusive interview to a local investigative journalist. I gave her every document, every court filing, every image. She ran a full story. How a Sacramento nurse reclaimed her children after international betrayal. It went viral. Every person who ever doubted me, who messaged me with maybe he had his reasons, had to sit with the facts. His job offers dried up. Friends ghosted him. Monique deleted her accounts. Derek's reputation was dead before his trial even started. But revenge wasn't just public. It was personal too. Jason and Ava don't ask about him anymore. They ask why someone would lie like that. I don't give them easy answers. I tell them some people pretend to love others, but real love shows up, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. They're in therapy. They laugh more. They sleep better. And me? I go to work. I come home. I tuck them in. And sometimes I sit in the dark and think about how close I came to losing everything. Then I remember the look on his face at the airport. The moment he saw the officers behind me. That was the moment he knew. You don't get to rewrite history. Not when I'm still here to tell the truth.